Okay, so beginning with William the Bastard.
Well, one thing that
F-tier, no.
I would personally... well, so it already start... How do you grade them?
Well,
And for me personally, the reason why I was like... thought that Cromwell was good, because I judge them by success in their own lifetime, in their own terms. So although you can very, very heavily criticise either Oliver Cromwell or in this case William the Conqueror for the harrying of the North and all sorts of things and being a Norman, not an
Lying about
Englishman,
Edward the Confessor, promising him the
and all
kingdom.
that sort of thing. In his own terms, in his own life, he was fantastically successful, astronomically successful.
Yeah. He couldn't have been
Right.
more successful.
Right.
What more would he have asked for?
So if you're sort of a pro-Harold person, then he's the devil, right?
Yeah.
But as I say, you can't take it away from him that he was phenomenal.
Well, it's funny, when I was 14 years old, I was very much into genealogy, and I found my descent from King Harold, and I absolutely hated immediately William the Conqueror until 2 weeks later I found my descent from William the Conqueror. I thought, actually, he wasn't that bad of a guy, but he completely reshaped, the notion of the monarchy as well. Introduced feudalism. I mean, just an entire new nobility came in. The fact that we still say beef rather than cow, and pork rather than pig. That's all down to him as well. And but to try to win over the English, if I can use the term, he very much bought into Edward the Confessor's laws and so forth. But no, undeniably a great man, but a right bastard.
In those,
Yeah.
in those, if you can rate them on sort of how pivotal they are, how important they are,
Well,
then in those terms, he's got to be
Yeah, the
at least
transformative
A tier
power.
for me.
Well, he's got to be S tier, really.
I think so.
Well, very few.
I like to keep that
Yeah.
really...
Sure, but very.
I don't get these categories. What is S team?
S tier is the top.
S tier is the top. I see.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Special, is it?
I have
Like
no
A-star,
idea.
it's
Zuma.
Yeah, I don't know.
It comes from video games, doesn't it?
Probably, I don't know.
That's how I know it anyway. But it seems to make sort of sense to categorise people in terms of how close they are to being a great man or woman of history, rather than our sort of subjective preference towards them.
I always view greatness as really the sort of transformative power the person exercises over their own epoch, right? So dictates what future epochs are going to end up looking like.
Because sorry.
By that standard, William is probably the highest, to be honest, which annoys me.
The only reason, I completely 100% agree with you, the only reason why I would put him in A rather than S is because there are some stains,
I'm
like
not
the
saying-
harrying of the North.
But again, from his perspective, that's kind of not.
That was a great win from his
Yeah,
point
exactly.
of
That's a
view.
massive win from his point. So
I think if we view it from the great man of history perspective, obviously lots of the great men of history are not necessarily moral and good people.
no, most of them are terrible.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, it's probably inverse of morality.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
And
There's very few nice people on this list.
yeah,
Like nice, cosy, friendly people. There's not really, well, one or two actually, but anyway.
So yeah, okay. We'll start strong and put William on S tier. I think. Hate to do it, but I'm a Saxon loyalist. But the facts are the facts. What can you do? So
tell who a handful of these portraits are.
well, yeah,
That's William II, I'm presuming.
yeah. That's William Rufus.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's Rufus with the
red-headed.
red hair.
Yeah. So when we did the epochs, wasn't he an atheist?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Openly atheist in the
Yeah.
11th century.
so-
Unbelievably rare. I put him as low as possible. He's one of our worst kings. I
Venal,
would say.
corrupt.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not trying to be homophobic, but openly homosexual, but not bi, but completely homosexual. Which, in his day, was sort of.
I like how we're
not
sidestepping
okay.
it. So by the
Yeah,
standards
but-
of his time,
Yeah, atheist and a tyrant.
Oh, that helps.
A tyrant. He would sort of, when there were offices of state.
Homosexual and a tyrant. Oh, that's
Yeah.
on the same level now? Is that what you're trying to say? I'm not quite sure.
homosexual tyrant, atheist, all bad.
He would, like, when there were offices of state that became open, he would just keep them closed and empty so he would accrue more power to himself. Things like that, or
That's right.
sell like the Archbishopric of Canterbury to people. Like,
So you're saying
it's
he
really
reduced
bad.
the size of the state?
Amassed it in his own person,
I suppose.
Stalin style, and also got himself murdered. Really, in the end, was assassinated. He was that unpopular in his own time. So he's probably for me the second or third worst possible one. That's just my take.
Well, if you get assassinated, I feel like it's a pretty obvious sign that you've not done well.
To be fair, the first few generations of kings were pretty up and down anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
So people are going to be like, what are these wild swings? But this is probably to be expected in a conquering dynasty, right? They've got to create a new settlement out of nothing, essentially. So F tier.
Well, that's one of the patterns I would say in this is that wild swings of the pendulum from good or great to terrible loser.
Yeah.
It just happens again and again and again and again, not just the early ones.
So next is it Stephen?
No, it'd be Henry the First.
Henry the First, right?
Who's the youngest son of William, so the younger brother of Rufus.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good, I would say. Ruled for a very long time. It was important.
35 years.
Right. Mm-hmm. In terms of, again, sort of shaping the state, very pivotal.
Oh, didn't he do a lot on administration?
Yeah, loads of that sort of thing. Yeah, but still an old school Norman monarch. If you're sort of an Anglo-Saxon loyalist or something, he would be like the devil again. Still, kind of.
Where he got back the 3 northern counties from the Scots, and then he was the first person to claim Dublin for the English crown. And he ended up flying his flag over Edinburgh Castle and Stirling Castle. So it was the first time the English actually went up to all parts of the kingdom.
Definitely a strong monarch. Definitely strong.
I found out recently that Edinburgh is only 900 years old. Obviously, it's been settled for almost 10,000 years, but the modern city is only 900 years old.
Near 900.
Yeah. Well, that was King David again. So King David started up the idea of burghs. And using, again, for English influence there, but establishing the towns and cities of Scotland. So,
I got the same thing when I went to visit Salisbury the other day, well, a few months ago. It was only in like 1230 or something it was actually founded. So it's not even 800 years old. Barely a city.
Often these things, there would have been an earlier settlement.
Yeah, undoubtedly. No. In Salisbury there wasn't. It was, so there was a settlement on a hill nearby with like a cathedral town, but they deliberately made the conscious choice to move down into the plain to be by the river, and so it was actually the founding of a brand new city. There wasn't a settlement there before. Okay. So it's got a homogenous identity in that. But okay, so where are we thinking with Henry the First then, folks?
You know, I'd say it's sort of a B tier. Pretty good, but not amazing. I mean,
what do you think, Rafe?
I would maybe put him in A tier, I think, given his expansion of the idea of the monarchy going beyond the realms of England.
What do you think, Josh?
I don't know anything about this sort of thing.
We'll go for the A tier then. Go on, we'll be generous. I do like the
If you'd
conquest.
like to have a look at my list, you're more than welcome. I'm keeping this up just to follow along and
So it's okay.
So then there's the anarchy. So that's Empress Matilda and then Stephen of Blois.
Right.
So they're sort of it's a period of anarchy. It's called the anarchy.
So
because Stephen's eldest son died in the White Ship disaster. So
civil war.
So Matilda is a failure. I mean, she got crowned herself queen and was sort of almost immediately thrown out.
Well, she was the legal heir. She was nominated by her father to become king, and then, but as soon as it happened, Stephen said, "Oh, actually, no." On his deathbed, he actually said, "I was," but he wasn't ruthless enough to actually suppress Matilda. Problem with Matilda was she was very unpopular. She was very arrogant and haughty, and it was very difficult for people to ally with her. Although King David did send down his troops to support Matilda. So I think she was a failure because she simply didn't have the personality traits and qualities for it. And I think Stephen was the far better man.
He was also pretty unpopular and weak as well, though, Stephen. So yeah, when Henry finally dies, well, it should have gone to his son who died in that White Ship accident. He made everyone swear an oath that the next in line, his daughter, they will recognise her as a type of female king. It's really interesting, not a queen as such.
Well, no, queen's a subordinate.
And she got she got crowned in Westminster, but as Rafe said, sort of was sort of like refused to get up when some of the barons came to pledge her fealty and things, and she was just unpopular. But then Stephen of Blois played his hand pretty poorly as well. So I'd put them both in like D tier, maybe F tier. They're both sort of...
I was going to say, she sounds pretty F tier, as in just categoric failure, right? I mean, if you...
Well, ultimately her faction wins, though.
Sure, but it's not her doing it, is it?
Not really. I mean, F tier is fine with me.
We can put her in D if you think she's...
No, I think F tier is F for fail.
Yeah. But right, let's go on Stephen, who seems to be represented by someone with cross eyes there.
Also,
very unfortunate portrait, isn't
I
it?
consider him also a failure. If there wouldn't have been an anarchy if he'd just been stronger.
Yes.
For example, and lots of people didn't. Again, lots of the baronial class didn't like him, didn't respect him. He disrespected the church. He played his hand poorly in ecclesiastical terms. He was a weak vacillator. But not like some sort of terrible mass-killing sex criminal, you know, not like the worst of the worst, but just not great. I mean, again, if we just, I suppose a failure, a type of failure.
Sure.
I'd put him in D or F, I suppose.
I'd say D probably for Stephen then.
All right.
I've never actually heard anything good about Stephen.
Right.
But,
right, there isn't that much to say.
Yeah.
Like, at least he achieved this great thing.
Yeah.
There isn't really anything.
Yeah. Right, so who's this fellow next?
Well, Henry II then.
Oh, right, yeah.
So he's...
Oh gosh, I was talking about Henry II earlier.
What
so
one?
we need to get the other Henry down.
Right, okay.
Henry II should be up there in terms of the A list.
Yeah,
Right, well, let's...
Sorry, I got my Henrys confused.
That's okay. If we can put Henry from A to B, then he's still pretty good.
I would put Henry II up there, either S or A.
Yeah,
probably
A.
A.
We're not on Henry. Oh, we're on
Yeah,
Henry.
now we're
II
on.
now, aren't we?
That's who
Henry
should be in
II.
A. That's my.
Okay,
So that's Henry Plantagenet.
right.
So
Yeah.
again, in terms of how pivotal he was, massively. Loads and loads of the institutions of state start with him. Loads of them.
Hugely influential dynasty.
The Angevin Empire. There's so much that could be said.
Yeah, we've
Henry
done. Have we not done like 2 epochs on Henry II?
Oh, I did loads.
But we did.
Pop quiz. Do you know the origin of Plantagenet?
I do.
He did tell me. Doesn't it mean like farmer or some gardener?
No, there was the Counts of Anjou, who was one of his holdings. They were known to have a particular flower, whether in their lapel or their hat or whatever it was.
Exactly.
And it
Plante de Genêt.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I will put him super. Well, we did one on Eleanor of Aquitaine. We did one on the meddlesome priest, Becket, and we did one on William Marshall, and finally got round to doing Henry himself.
Yeah.
So Henry II, you know, after the anarchy with Matilda and Stephen, Henry II brought stability to the country after that 19 years, and he crushed any of the barons who were opposing him by seizing their castles and so forth. And the most important thing was he rewrote English law to make the crown more powerful, because, you know, essentially the crown had not the notion that we have today. And so he essentially brought in common law as we know it. It was the very beginnings of our own modern legal system, where everybody had the right of appeal to the king, which I think is why he should be important. And he was the chap who went to Ireland.
Yeah.
And who planted the flag in Edinburgh and Stirling. So for all of that, I think he merits being in the A team.
Didn't
The
he
A
do
team.
quite a lot in France as well.
Well, yeah, yes and no. It's a big mishmash. I mean, obviously, he married Eleanor of Aquitaine, so got the Aquitaine, and did various things in France. It ebbed and flowed. The Angevin Empire ebbed and flowed, but didn't lose massively, didn't win massively on the battlefield in France. In fact, at the end of his life, lost bits and bobs, but...
And one of the greatest films on British history ever recorded is The Lion in Winter, with Peter O'Toole playing Henry II and Catherine Hepburn playing Eleanor Aquitaine, and the children are, you know, Timothy Dalton and Anthony Hopkins, and it's a superb film. Everyone should watch it. It gives you a great insight into that era.
One of my favourite films of all time. So I've got whole epochs on that.
I know you've made me. You've suggested I watch it. And I just haven't yet.
It's honestly one of my favourite films of all time.
No doubt.
They did a remake in the early 2000s with Glenn
Oh,
Close,
really?
and it's really crap. I refuse to recognise that that's real.
Okay, well, Henry II will go to A tier. A tier.
80
Apparently, he died at 56 as well. Which
Not bad.
of a broken heart.
oh,
Was
very
it?
sad.
Well, they said when he finally found out John was on the list of traitors, he just sort of
Right.
he sort of curled up, turned away, and died. It's probably a massive exaggeration. So Richard then,
Well,
and Leon.
Well, I see. I've got favourites when it comes to English kings, and I happen to know quite a lot about Richard because I happen to love a warrior king. Because I'm completely with Machiavelli on this. The purpose of the prince is war, and therefore the king that is the best at war is my favourite king. And Richard, I don't think he ever lost a battle, actually. So it puts him among the greatest commanders ever, actually. Because most great commanders still have lost battles, but like there's a very rare breed of commander who's never lost a battle. And I think Richard is in that. I'd have to double check. But
I would put him in S tier. There's only two that I would categorically kind of insist we put in S tier, and that Richard's one of them.
But he had no children, which I feel like is a dereliction of duty.
No
as a
legitimate children.
Yeah.
king. Yeah.
Lots of little Palestinians running around. Descendants.
He also died at 41, shot apparently in a quarrel.
yeah, he was shot by some French peasant. And so
Man,
that's,
That's got to be, marked down a little bit.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
maybe.
still dying gloriously
yeah, he's still dying in
in
battle.
action.
By a Frenchman with a crossbow.
Yeah, well,
Things happen,
okay,
don't
it's ignominious, but
in the last sort of century, a lot of people have turned against Richard the Lionheart and the whole notion and said that he was a very bad king because he was never interested in England. But the whole point is that's a very little Englander perspective, because of course he wasn't just king of England, and he had to deal with his entire realms as well as fighting Christianity. So if you look at it on the broader spectrum, he was absolutely deserving of top tier status.
I also have, from a sort of little England perspective, I want the king over there doing those things, not harassing me. A king who spends too much time in England is a king who spends too much time thinking about what I'm doing. No. Go deal with the foreigners. Go smite them.
so over there doing those things is the Third Crusade,
Yeah.
kicking ass and taking names in the Holy Land.
Or in France.
I mean, things like
It's not just the Holy Land.
like Jaffa, the siege of Jaffa, or
yeah.
his military exploits were incredible,
Legend.
sort of incredible.
There's the sort of thing that fairy tales are made of.
Yeah.
So but also the sort of the coming up of his life, the being unhorsed by William Marshall, like that's an incredible story. Very few people get to have a cool story like that. Oh, I was trained as a swordsman by the greatest knight in Christendom. Like, that's awesome, man.
If there's any English king that comes close to being like a fairy tale, chivalric hero of old type thing, it's Richard, for me.
And also, as well, one of the things I like about Richard is his clemency, right? So one of the things that I kind of hate about certain rulers throughout history is cruelty. Right? I actually don't like when kings. Okay, yeah, I'm the absolute king. Like Genghis Khan was a very cruel man, personally, and I actually really don't like that. It's one thing killing, sacking a city, killing everyone in a city. That's kind of impersonal, right? And so it's like, yeah, I'm a king. I've just taken a city. My troops want to sack it. Of course they're going to sack it. But it's another thing being like, oh, I hate this guy. I'm just going to murder him, or like take his wife or something like that. Like personal cruelty, I find disgusting, actually. And Richard doesn't display this. In fact, the kid who shot him with the crossbow through the neck, he was pardoned by Richard, and Richard then died, and all of his friends were like, yeah, he may have pardoned you, but we're going to flay you. And so they did.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but some food for thought here is Caesar's clemency got him killed.
Yeah, I'm not.
So it's
I'm not
a risky business.
well,
There's a time and a place.
I'm not. I mean, and this again, when it comes from back from the Crusade and pardons John, would have been very easy to just have, strung John up for being a traitor, but he doesn't, and he's very kind, and I actually really find that appealing. It's romantic to me.
Again, if anyone's watching this, they are already subscribed to the website. Check out Epochs, where there's, I think we did 2 or even 3 episodes just on Richard.
Quite a lot on Richard, because there's a lot there. But also, so the final thing as well, just on Richard, I love the heroism, man. Like we did a ranking of like the hardest generals, who the toughest are, and Richard's easily among the top. It's difficult to think of any man physically more scary in battle than Richard, which is something I like too.
The chroniclers at the time, I don't know, people like Master Wace or Walter Map, or there's a number of them, Aldrich Vitalis. They say William Marshall was the greatest knight of the age, and the only one who came close was Richard. So, and being a king, or controlling a type of empire, the Argian Empire still, it's got to be S tier for me.
If you would like to see the full version of this premium video, please head over to lotuseaters.com and subscribe to gain full access to all of our premium content.